The idea that prosperity is somehow sinful is a colossal myth, a lie whispered down through generations. It's astounding how many people remain trapped in poverty, not by divine decree, but by their own ingrained self-doubt and lack of relentless effort. We're taught from childhood that riches are the root of all evil, that a camel passing through the eye of a needle is easier than a rich man entering heaven. This breeds guilt, crippling financial growth. The truth? Scripture doesn't condemn wealth itself, but laziness, greed, and a lack of purpose. Proverbs 10:4 is crystal clear. A diligent hand makes rich, but an idle hand brings poverty. Prosperity is the harvest of consistent action, not luck or divine favor. Think about it. How many times have you poured your heart into something only to quit just before the breakthrough? How many dreams have you shelved, convinced that God wasn't on your side, when really you simply lacked the grit to see them through? That premature surrender keeps millions mired in hardship. Prayer without action is mere wishing. The scriptures champion diligent work, yielding bountiful results. I know this firsthand. After dropping out of school, I bounced between dead-end jobs, changing tires, greasing cars, scrubbing grime in factories. The frustration was soul-crushing. I felt trapped, questioning my fate. I lacked direction, purpose. Had I clung to that mindset, I might still be stuck in that cycle. The problem wasn't the work itself, but my own self-perception. Scripture states that a diligent hand makes rich, but I failed to grasp that true wealth encompasses mental and spiritual riches, not just material ones. Many mistake humility for mediocrity. Humility acknowledges God's role in all things. Mediocrity settles for less, believing striving is somehow wrong. How often have you felt guilty for wanting a better life? That guilt itself is a cage, stifling your choices. It's as though having money is inherently sinful, when in reality, it amplifies your capacity for good. Prosperous people have more resources to help others, to serve their communities, to make a real difference. Science backs up what Scripture already taught. Studies consistently show that hard work and discipline, even without exceptional talent, consistently outperform innate ability in the long run. It's the principle of sowing and reaping in action, not natural talent, but daily persistence. And while most give up before the harvest, the persistent reap a bounty many deem unattainable. My time with the Toronto Fire Department was stable, secure, what many would call a blessing. Yet, I felt a profound emptiness. That's when I read, "Think and Grow Rich," and everything changed. The scriptures and the book weren't contradictory but complementary. The message was simple. Faith demands action, and wealth is the fruit of persistent, determined effort. Understand this. Prosperity isn't accidental, it's intentional. Scripture doesn't criticize those who build wealth justly. It celebrates the wisdom of managing and multiplying God-given gifts. The mistake lies in burying those talents, in inaction, in believing that wanting more is somehow wrong. You might have done this unknowingly, shelved dreams because someone told you ambition is disapproved of. Ask yourself, did your Creator bestow upon you the ability to think, dream, create, only to limit you to the bare minimum? True wealth is multifaceted, spiritual, emotional, mental, and yes, material. Material wealth is part of the equation, offering expansion. Scarcity, conversely, restricts, imprisons, suffocates. Scripture doesn't condemn abundance. It condemns idleness, a lack of diligence, paralyzing fear. And perhaps that's the greatest sin against yourself. Burying your potential, a gift meant to be nurtured and developed. The lesson is clear. Wealth and persistence are inseparable. No harvest without sowing, no abundance without movement. If you quit too soon, it wasn't God who abandoned you. It was you who abandoned your harvest. The scriptures already said it. A diligent hand makes rich. What will your choice be from now on? How many dreams have stalled because you believed you lacked talent? Most people quit not for lack of ability, but for lack of perseverance. The world is rife with talented individuals who've accomplished little, while others, lacking exceptional gifts, have reached incredible heights because they refuse to give up. Talent might open doors, but persistence keeps you inside. Research shows 92% of people abandon their New Year's resolutions within 3 months. That means only 8 out of 100 persevere. And what distinguishes those few from the rest? Not superior intelligence, not a supernatural gift, but simply the willingness to keep going when the majority has already quit. Persistence transforms the impossible into possible. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. 1,000! Imagine if he'd given up at attempt 999, the world would still be largely in darkness. That's what Scripture calls perseverance, believing even when it seems nothing is happening. The harvest doesn't come the same day as the sowing. I know this from personal experience. When I decided to start my cleaning company, I had no formal training, no business acumen, little faith in my success. Many laughed, some called me naive, but I held firm to one belief. If I kept moving, the results would follow. And they did. Within a year, that company generated over $100,000, an unimaginable sum for someone who dropped out of school and had 0 prospects. But how easily we convince ourselves to quit. How many times have you started something only to be derailed by the first obstacle? Maybe you launched a business with no clients the first few months. Maybe you started saving, then an unexpected expense wiped it all out. Maybe you tried to improve your spirituality only to fall back into old habits. The point is, most people quit far too soon. Persistence means continuing even without signs of progress, understanding that the harvest is inevitable for those who don't abandon the field. Galatians 6:9 reinforces this. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. That's persistence. It's planting, watering, and nurturing. Even when the field seems barren, it's believing that the harvest will come in its own time, and that your role is to remain steadfast in the process. Looking back, the difference between that aimless young man juggling dead-end jobs and the man who built an empire of knowledge and personal development was simple. The decision not to quit. I could have stayed with the fire department, safe, secure, but empty. I could have given up on the company when challenges arose, but each time I held firm, I realized that persistence becomes an invisible, almost spiritual force, aligning the universe in your favor. If you want to change your life, understand this. Talent is a starting point, never a guarantee of arrival. Your destiny is defined by your willingness to keep moving when everyone else has stopped. Persistence is faith in action, the fuel that transforms dreams into reality. And every time you persevere, even without immediate results, you build not only wealth, but character. Many say they don't want to be rich, just to have enough to live on. But deep down, it's fear. Fear of failure, fear of not deserving, fear of judgment. Money for most isn't just a numerical value, it's a mirror reflecting our deepest beliefs. How often have you felt uncomfortable asking for a raise? How many opportunities have you missed because the possibility of loss seemed more terrifying than the chance of gain? That fear is an invisible prison holding millions in mediocrity. I felt that fear when I decided to leave the Toronto Fire Department. I had job security, a stable routine, and many warned me it would be reckless to leave it all behind. The constant refrain was, what if it doesn't work out? And deep down, I was asking myself the same question. Fear paralyzed me. It was as if I was about to abandon the certain for the uncertain. But then I realized security can also be a prison. Stability was, simultaneously, the chain holding me back from growth. Studies show people who fear handling money are 80% more likely to be in debt. This is because by fearing money, you avoid learning about it. You postpone decisions, ignore the numbers, and consequently enter a cycle of disorganization and scarcity. Have you noticed how some people avoid opening bank accounts or looking at their debts? It's as though ignoring the problem solves it. But that's just fear disguised as protection. Fear manifests in other ways. How many have thought, if I get rich, I'll lose my friends, my family will criticize me, people will envy me. This mentality creates an unconscious rejection of prosperity. The person wants a better life, but deep down resists because they believe they'll have to pay a steep price in relationships and social acceptance. The result is a constant internal battle. One side wants to prosper, the other sabotages. I clearly remember receiving my first substantial payment. It was exhilarating, yet a weight settled upon me. I questioned, do I deserve this? Will people judge me? In that moment, I realized it wasn't the money itself that frightened me, but the beliefs I held about it. Money has no personality. It's neither good nor evil. It simply amplifies who we are. If you are generous, with more money, you'll be more generous. If you are responsible, with more money, you'll be more responsible. But if you are fearful, insecure, and guilty, money will only intensify those feelings. 2 Timothy 1:7 states, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." This means fear was never part of the plan for your life. Fear is learned, ingrained over the years, and can be unlearned when you choose to replace it with faith and action. Persistence is the antidote to this fear, because when you persevere, even when insecure, you prove to yourself that you are bigger than what frightens you. Think about it. Everything that's natural to you today was once terrifying. Riding a bike, driving a car, public speaking, it seemed impossible at first. But when you confronted the fear and practiced, what once paralyzed you became second nature. Money is exactly the same. It only becomes manageable and natural when you face it head-on, learn to handle it, and decide you won't let fear dictate your choices. This is the crux. Fear of money keeps people stagnant, but the courage to confront it opens doors that seemed locked. I experienced this when I decided to leave security to create something new. It was terrifying at first, but liberating afterward. Fear will always be present, but you don't have to let it steer your life. Your role is simply to acknowledge that you're stepping outside your comfort zone. The rest depends on your faith, your persistence, and your willingness to embrace the fact that abundance isn't a sin. It's a right, and even more, a responsibility. Scripture says, "To whom much is given, much will be required." This encapsulates a powerful truth. Wealth isn't just a blessing, it's a character test. Money doesn't transform anyone, it simply amplifies what's already within each person. If someone is generous, with more resources, they'll be even more generous. But if someone is greedy, selfish, or reckless, money will only magnify those traits. That's why so many people amass fortunes and then lose them, not for lack of earning ability, but for lack of wisdom in managing. Think of Mike Tyson, for example. He was one of the greatest boxers in the world, accumulating hundreds of millions of dollars, but without understanding management, discipline, and the persistence to learn, he ended up bankrupt. Talent took him to the top, but his character wasn't equally sustained. This shows it's not how much you earn that determines your life, but how you handle what you earn. I vividly remember receiving my first large payment. Until that day, I'd been accustomed to low wages, temporary jobs, just scraping by. Suddenly, I held a sum that could completely change my reality. And it was then that I understood the true challenge wasn't acquiring the money, but what I would do with it going forward. I could have spent it all on luxuries, as many do, trying to impress others or compensate for years of scarcity. But I asked myself a question that changed my course. What will this decision say about me in 10 years? This is the kind of reflection wealth demands. It holds a mirror to your face and asks, who are you really? How many people have won the lottery and a few years later are back in debt, sometimes worse off than before? This doesn't happen because they're unlucky, but because they weren't emotionally and mentally prepared to handle abundance. Wealth is a daily test of discipline, vision, and purpose. Science confirms this. Studies show people who receive large, unexpected sums, such as inheritances or lottery winnings, are far more likely to lose it all within 5 years, unless they've cultivated a mindset of financial responsibility. This proves it's not money that brings prosperity, but how you think and act in relation to it. When Scripture talks about multiplying talents, it's teaching this very principle. It's not enough to receive. You must manage, grow, and generate a positive impact. The servant who buried his talent was condemned not because he lost money, but because he lacked the courage to take responsibility for multiplying it. This means inaction is also a mistake, and just as serious as wastefulness. I've learned that wealth demands conscious choices every day. Each financial decision is, in reality, a character decision. You can spend everything to project a life that isn't yours, or you can use your resources to build something lasting, something that serves not only you but those around you. That's true responsibility. Understanding that prosperity isn't just about accumulating, it's about how you use what you've received. Ultimately, wealth is a test everyone wants to pass but few are willing to prepare for, because it demands discipline, perseverance, humility to learn, and courage to apply. And those who don't understand this might amass great wealth, but they won't be able to sustain abundance. Money doesn't change anyone. It just reveals the truth that was already hidden. The question is, what would wealth reveal about you? Did you know that about 95% of the thoughts we have today are the same as yesterday? This means that if you don't change the way you think, you will continue to recreate the same reality every day, as if trapped in an endless cycle. Most people don't realize they live on autopilot, repeating patterns, behaviors, and beliefs inherited from childhood, family, or society. And that's precisely why, even desiring different results, they remain stuck in the same place. I clearly remember when I first read Think and Grow Rich. Those pages moved me like nothing had before. It was as if a curtain had been lifted from my eyes. What struck me most was realizing that Scripture had been saying the same thing for centuries: be transformed by the renewing of your mind. External change always begins within, and wealth can only appear when your mindset expands to accept it. Until that moment, I carried a self-image of failure, believing my destiny was to scrape by with mediocre jobs. But that book showed me I could reprogram my thoughts, and that's exactly what started to happen. Science confirms this reality. Studies on neuroplasticity show that the brain has the ability to remodel itself throughout life, creating new neural pathways from repeated thoughts and new habits. This means that just as a trail in a field becomes more defined each time it's traversed, your brain also strengthens the thought patterns you use most. If you spend your days repeating, "I can't," "It's not for me," "I'll never have enough money," your mind creates fertile ground for scarcity. But if you insist on affirming, "I am worthy of abundance," "I am capable of prosperity," "I have discipline and perseverance," your mind begins to adjust to this new identity. Want a simple, practical exercise? For the next 7 days, every morning, repeat aloud, "I am worthy of the abundance God has prepared for me." Say it looking in the mirror, even if it feels strange or false at first. What you're doing is creating a new neural pathway, weakening the old voice that said the opposite. I've experienced this type of practice myself, and I can guarantee that over time, the mind aligns with the words. And when the mind changes, attitudes change, and results inevitably follow. Many believe success is reserved only for the smartest, the luckiest, or those born into privileged families. But the truth is that everyone has the capacity to renew their thoughts. The difference lies in who decides to undertake this process daily. Cultivating success is like tending a garden. Remove the weeds of negative thoughts and plant seeds of prosperity, nurturing them daily until they blossom. I understand you've tried to change but reverted to old patterns. The mind seeks the familiar, even if painful. However, each effort, each affirmation of your true identity weakens that vicious cycle. It's like strengthening a muscle, initially uncomfortable, but consistency makes it stronger. The persistence in transforming your mentality is the key to abundance, distinguishing those who prosper from those who remain in scarcity. The secret lies not only in accumulating knowledge, but in remodeling your thinking. Dreaming of a better life isn't enough. Align your thoughts with that vision daily. Ancient wisdom and science converge on this point, and my experience proves that by changing your mind, the world around you transforms. I knew a man with countless hardships. He lived in a deprived community, surrounded by limitations with no visible opportunities, but he possessed something invisible, an unshakable vision of his future. That man was Andrew Carnegie, who became one of history's greatest magnates and philanthropists. From humble beginnings, toiling away in a textile mill, clocking endless hours for pennies, Andrew Carnegie possessed an unshakable belief in a future far beyond the din of the looms. He clung to that inner conviction, even when the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. What's truly remarkable isn't just the colossal fortune he amassed, but the way he demonstrated the power of the mind to shape reality. For Carnegie, wealth wasn't just about money. It was a mindset, a way of being. This philosophy led him to encourage Napoleon Hill's research into the habits of highly successful people, culminating in Think and Grow Rich, a book that has inspired millions. An unwavering vision, fueled by faith and relentless discipline, can transform not only lives but entire generations. Carnegie understood a rarely applied principle. External circumstances may appear insurmountable, but internal perspective unlocks endless possibilities. Instead of getting bogged down in hardship, he cultivated thoughts of prosperity, seeing abundance where others saw scarcity, attracting extraordinary people and opportunities along the way. It's a simple truth. We attract what we focus on. I've witnessed it countless times. Ordinary people with limited resources building empires simply because they held on to a clear and persistent vision. The difference between dreamers and achievers lies in the tenacity to keep that vision front and center, even when the road gets rough. Vision precedes achievement always. A vivid picture of your desire acts like a powerful magnet, pulling in the resources, the ideas, and the people needed to make it a reality. Carnegie's story proves that your current circumstances are irrelevant. What matters is the picture you choose to paint of yourself. What seemed impossible for that young factory worker became inevitable because he chose to nurture a vision of success. And that vision guided him until the impossible bowed to his unwavering resolve. Abundance isn't accidental. It's the offspring of a clear vision, sustained by faith and the daily discipline of renewing your thoughts and beliefs. By understanding that your reality is a mirror reflecting your inner world, you take control, directing your energy toward what you want to manifest. Thanks for joining me. The next video in this personal growth series is ready for you. Keep moving forward, striving to be a little better than you were yesterday. See you there.